Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning into this week's edition of Stop, Look, and Listen. Today I have songwriter, music producer, professor, and entrepreneur. You've heard her music on various programs such as Dancing with the Stars, Temptation Island, and Love is Blind. Yeah, we got Nismah Osman on the show. How you doing, Nismah?
I'm good, LaTroy. Nice to be here.
Oh, nice to meet you. Yeah, so like I said, you've been the musical mind behind a lot of shows that we're familiar with, especially right now with Love Is Blind, the popularity. Like, just give us a rundown of that resume and what jingles we hear that is so familiar that you're behind.
Yeah, sure. Um, recently, there's been Love is Blind, there was Temptation Island. Um, there's this really cool show called The Next Black Millionaire. Um, geez, what else? I did an Apple TV spot. It was a new show called Best Foot Forward about a kid with a disability. So that was really cool. Yeah, lots of cool stuff. It's kind of hard to keep track sometimes, but those are the highlights for sure.
Right. All right. So take us back to the genesis. Like, when did your
Yeah.
musical gift begin to manifest itself?
Well, like most music people, I got the music bug when I was a kid. I can remember writing songs as bad as they were, as young as like 7 or 8, and I just remember loving the process, and I think I ended up finding it as a means to express my emotions, and I had a somewhat of a strenuous childhood, so I found it as an outlet, and I just kind of fell in love with it, and it kept progressing year after year. I picked up instruments, and then I started learning how to write songs seriously, and then I learned music production, and one thing leads to another, and here we are all these years later.
Right. And you attended the acclaimed Berkeley College of Music, which you majored in music and songwriting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that school is a who's who of some of the most some of the musical legends. Like Quincy Jones stood out. I
Yeah.
actually, when I was applying for colleges, I looked into Berkeley, but I didn't have the musical chops to even apply. But I was just like, wow, there's a school that I can learn music business, which would have been my interest. And
Yeah.
yeah, like just talk about your experience attending Berkeley in Boston.
Yeah, it was an incredible experience. I look back on it often, and I wish that I had gone when I wasn't 18 and didn't know uh, what the hell I was doing,
Hmm.
because it's a school that, well, it's very rigorous. It's a very rigorous program, and so in a way, it's exhausting, but it's also exciting. But it's a school that um, you really get out what you put in. I guess that's anything in life, but there's just so many opportunities there to network, to make friends, to participate in projects, to get experiences, and you really it's a take your pick sort of environment. So it was incredible in that way. You get exposed to so much music, so many talented people, so many challenging opportunities. Um, yeah, I wish I had done more when I was there.
Uh-huh. So I'm assuming a lot of the students that attended Berkeley, they probably came from like a performing arts background. Like,
Some.
yeah. So like, was that kind of how it was at Berkeley, where it's almost like you're at a real life Glee, and everyone around you is is walking
Kind
the
of.
halls and singing, and
Yeah,
you
kind
know
of. Yeah, there's
during
music all around all the time, and that was one of my favorite things about it was you couldn't walk across the street without hearing music, and it was a beautiful thing in that way. But yeah, not as coordinated as Glee, but
yeah.
definitely as passionate.
Uh huh. All right, all right, cool. So you attended songwriting boot camp, um, with producer, songwriter, Cara Diaguardi.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, just talk about some of those lessons and the techniques that you learned from her, and how it improved your songwriting.
Yeah, that was a crazy weekend. I often say that I learned like, or I say that I made a year's worth of progress in like 3 days, because it was just so intense. So basically, how they structured it was they brought a small group of songwriters through a an application process. Um, there were probably about 15 of us, and they brought us all to a studio in New York City, and Kara was there. And for those who don't know who Kara is, she's a legendary pop songwriter. She's responsible for some of the greatest hits you've heard. But anyway, so that in itself was terrifying. But then she gets us all in a room and she's like, "You're all gonna write and produce. So fully write and produce out a track every day for these next 3 days,
Hmm.
and you're going to do it in small groups." And so they paired us off with like two or three other people. They stuck us in these rooms with, a microphone and a laptop with Logic on it, and a MIDI keyboard, and they were like, "Go create." And they would pop in. She had a couple of other producers with her. They're from the a group called the 11. Um, but they would come in and listen to what we had, basically tell us that it was absolute junk and we needed to start over. And so we did, and you just that process of like getting feedback from someone who is at that level, it's different than any other type of, iterative process I've been a part of. And you just the thing about Kara is she's extremely honest, and it can come across as cruel to the wrong person who can't, who doesn't have the thick skin to be able to take feedback. But I found it really refreshing and really helpful because you kind of get past all the bullshit and you can get
Hmm.
right to the heart of what you're doing. And she's just it was just incredible. She's incredible. She's a really kind person and really really cares about the people she helps. So it was a great experience.
Right. And yeah, just piggybacking off of having thick skin. I Was that something that was always the case with you when it comes to your artistry, or did you realize that after hearing harsh criticism, the first few times that what, this is a lesson, this is only to help improve my craft.
That's a great question, and I want to say my ego wants to say that I've always been able to handle feedback, but that's not the case. It is something that I've had to develop, and I think most people have to develop. But I think the thing for me, the kind of motivating factor for making me do that work was just the fact that if you want to grow in music, if you want to have any type of success and sound any type of professional, then you're going to have to be able to take feedback, and sometimes it's going to feel really crappy because that's the nature of criticism, right? So yeah, it's something that I've worked hard to develop, and a skill that I think really serves me these days.
Okay. All right. So I'm extremely curious about a lot of what you're doing when it comes to crafting music for television and film.
Sure.
So, could you just, first off, what was your like foot in the door placement? Like,
Yeah, so
how did you really get this portion of your career off the ground?
yeah, it actually was an accident. So I was 13 when I got my first placement, and it happened completely by accident. So I was at a singer-songwriter convention that they had in my hometown, and they were doing like a little talent show thing. And so my friend kind of pushed me up on stage and he was like, "Go sing your song that you wrote." And I was shaking in my boots, but I played it. And then after the talent show, I was approached by a man and he said, "I'm a music publisher and I think your song would work really well in TV shows and ads." And I was like, "Great, sign me up." Where do I sign? So he helped me get the song produced, and he published it with his publishing company, and that song went on to land, it continues to land placements to this day, and that was 10 years ago plus.
Hmm.
So that was kind of my foot in the door there. And then, but I took a, I kind of, paused on that for a while because I had to finish high school. And right, I was like a kid. But then I was reintroduced to sync or music licensing um, when I was in college, and I remembered that, and I was like, oh, uh, I should really like do that again, except this time on purpose. And
Uh-huh.
so I did, and from that moment, on, it's been about 7 years since then, and I've been able to make some good progress.
So, is that the typical process that you've experienced where you have songs and a production company reaches out to you saying that your music would fit the show? Or is it the opposite where um, the production company or, the show is reaching out to you asking for you to create music for
So,
their program?
so I mean, that will happen when you have established relationships with music licensing agencies, but if you're getting started, it's going to be you reaching out to music licensing agencies. So
Hmm.
the agencies are the middlemen, in
Okay.
quotes, right, between the musicians and the production companies who make the ads and TV shows, right?
Right.
So the agency's job is to kind of curate a really highly selected or high quality selection of music to be able to pitch to the opportunities that these TV shows and ad producers provide. And so I teach that. I teach musicians how to engage in that process and how to actually make money from uh, getting their music in film and TV. And that's kind of the first place we start, is learning what those agencies are looking for in terms of music, practicing making that music, and then I actually give them meetings with those agencies to pitch their music. So that's kind of the simple process of how it works.
Okay. Um, yeah. So with that process, like, do you get, say, like an advanced viewing of the movie to where you can just creatively be inspired by what you're seeing and create music that fits it? Or
So not typically. That's more like a film scoring role.
mm-hmm.
Sync licensing is more of a soundtrack creation. Sometimes you will get, like very rarely, you will get the footage, and they'll ask you to write music for the footage. They'll give you creative direction. But for the most part, they've already got an idea of what they want, and they usually have a reference song or two that they want you to create something similar for. And so you use that, and you go off of that. But then it's also just you're actively creating songs that generally work for music licensing, and in hopes that they fit certain projects down the line.
Okay. All right. So, do you feel like getting music placements in film, TV shows, commercials, and video games is an avenue that musicians often ignore?
Yeah, too many. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think it's kind of, when you zoom out, and you look at the music industry, um, it's it's never been easier, but it's also never been harder to monetize your music. The reason for that is actually, I consider it a double-edged sword. That it's never been easier to actually create music at a professional level because of, the internet, and, services like Fiverr and Sound Better and YouTube. You can teach yourself how to do anything. And so the access to being able to make music and release music has never been easier. But at the same time, that means that the competition has never been bigger, right?
Hmm.
So it's a double-edged sword, right? Like, it's never been easier, but it's also, there's so much noise that you have to figure out how to how to rise above. And it's surprising to me that so many artists ignore this path of music licensing that is not guaranteed, but it's really stable and um, good income. Um, and they follow this path of trying to go viral on social media in an effort to get streams that pay, like 0.0003 cents, right? So it's like it doesn't make the return on investment doesn't make sense there, right?
Hmm.
So it's surprising to me, but also not surprising because musicians are not inherently great at business. We're creative people. So, but anyway, yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents on that.
Right. And I mean, so you outlined a few of the mistakes and pitfalls that you see most artists um, doing to kind of hold them back. Just continue to drive home just your journey and how you're able to have a sustainable career without trying to, like you said, go viral or um, you know put out music that's on the radio. Like just continue to hammer home that path that have
Yeah,
made a successful career for you.
believe it or not, it's a scientific method, right?
Hmm.
It's the idea of um, doing something, doing the same thing over again, expecting different results, right? That's the definition of insanity. And I think all musicians are a little insane, but myself included. But I took an engineering approach. So what that means is you test, you iterate, you see what works, what doesn't, what's actually giving you a return, right? What's actually putting money in your pocket. And I've tried it all. I tried the social media. I tried, doing YouTube stuff. I tried, you name it, I've tried it, right?
Hmm.
But what has come back every time as a return has been music licensing. And so I've decided, okay, well, I'll follow that path, right? Because financially it makes the most sense. And then I can use that return on my investment to in to make progress on these other projects, right? Like my an artist project, for example, or a songwriting retreat or something, um, and kind of engineer it that way, right? So I would say you have to kind of adopt that process, that engineering mindset,
Hmm.
because it's very necessary for successful business, and that's one thing that a lot of my clients struggle with is adopting that business mindset because it can take away from the creative, flow process of making music that we're also in love with. So,
Right. All right. So, like, how can musicians leverage streaming platforms to maximize their income and reach?
yeah, so the way that you can leverage streaming, right? I always say you want to you want to control your business, you want to run your business, you don't want your business to run you. And so streaming is great once you're at a certain level of reach and monthly listeners, right? You
Hmm.
can make a great living doing that. But the work to get there from nothing is a lot, right? So instead of just doing that, right, I recommend actually building a solid fan base that you control. And the way that you do that is you build an email list, right? So you can do that kind of organically. You can try to do it on social media. Um, or I recommend using paid ads. So paid Facebook and Instagram ads to find people who will end up being your super fans. Because not only will those people stream your music a lot, like a lot more than a random person who hears your song on a playlist, right? So they'll stream your music more, but they'll also purchase other things from you, right? Like they're more likely to purchase your concert tickets or merchandise or, whatever, if you have like a monthly subscription fan service or whatever. So you're really targeting people who are your super fans as opposed to passive fans. And in that way, you have more control over your how you interact with your fans because you can directly email them, right? As opposed to being dependent on an algorithm to reach people. And then you also know that more they're really really into what you do, and in that way you see more of a return.
Hmm. So, do you feel like because you've become so business savvy, do you feel like that grants you more creative freedom, or because a lot of times people feel like the business side impacts their creative ability and vice versa. So, um,
Yeah,
what's your approach to that?
yeah, I love that question. Absolutely, being more understanding the business and that engineering process absolutely grants you more creative freedom because of that control piece, like because of that you're running your business as opposed to your business running you, right?
Hmm.
It's switching the roles, like, oh, okay, I just need to do whatever so that I can make some money or get some fans and followers, right? You're switching that. You're going, I have this process that I control, that I know exactly the returns I'm going to get. And so now how do I want that to look and feel, right? So because if you're running ads, right, and you're getting these fans and you know that, okay, if I spend $1,000 in Facebook ads, I will acquire 50 new fans, and those 50 fans over 6 months are going to pay me, $2,000, just as an example. Now I know that if I want to make $1,000, I need to spend $1,000. Now you have a system, right? Now you know, okay, what do I want to do? Because now I know if I spend $1,000, I'll make $1,000, right? So I'm free to do whatever makes me feel the best because I have a system already, as opposed to like, oh, well, I'll just make whatever is going to go viral, right? Like, and that doesn't necessarily feel good, but I have to do it, right? So it's switching that mindset. And you do that by creating these systems through iterating on the process. Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
cool.
Uh huh. Yeah. So, like you mentioned earlier, you returned to your alma mater, the Berkeley College of Music, in a teaching capacity,
Yeah.
and teaching songwriting and music business classes. Um, what inspired you to give back and share your expertise with the current students at Berkeley College?
Well, it was kind of an offer I couldn't resist. It was just so cool, and um, it was obviously paid, but it was just a chance to feel like you got to share what you learned with the new generation. And I'm telling you, these kids are crazy talented. Like
Hmm.
they're making stuff at 16 that I just learned how to make last year, like they're so far ahead technologically and creatively, and it's because they grew up, with iPhones from the womb, so it's they're just on a different level in that way. But it was a really cool experience just getting to listen to them and hear them and just see how they think and provide some direction and guidance. It was a cool opportunity.
Okay. How long have you been doing it?
So I just did it 2 summers. It was
Uh
like a
huh.
a week-long program. So yeah.
Okay. Cool. Um, so, like, can you share like a memorable experience from your time teaching that significantly um, impacted your perspective on your creative process today?
Oh man, a memorable experience. I mean, I think that there isn't one thing that stands out, but it's a pattern, and that pattern is that there is a process, and there's a process of being able to make peace with what you don't know that everyone has to go through in order to get to the next level.
Hmm.
No matter what level you're at. And so I'm talking to myself too. Like, and I think working with so many different musicians, um, it it teaches me, reminds me of that process, that I need to continue that process in myself, right?
Dr. Todd McLean provides periodontal and dental implant services in 2 convenient locations. They offer over a decade of experience treating patients, and appointments can even be scheduled in the evenings, weekends, or early mornings. Give them a call in Chapel Hill at 919-537-9774 or in Durham at 919-484-8338, or visit them online at gumsandimplants.org.
What do you see when you look in the mirror?
Huh. That's a vulnerable question.
Okay.
I see a kid who just wants to have fun and be herself and experience the magic of life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, like with the creative process, what inspires you the most?
I I just love the process of making something come to life that's in my head. You know, I love creative problem solving too, and I think music, or that process of making music, of taking something in my head and making it come to life, is kind of like a problem to solve, but not in a negative way, you know, just kind of like a challenge to
Mm-hmm.
overcome. And I really love that process. It's really rewarding for me.
Uh-huh. So with the licensing and music placement process, has there ever been a moment where um, a song was accepted and you were surprised at what was used um, in that song?
No, I don't think so. I think it because I write intentionally for sync, and so I'm it makes sense when they use the songs, you know,
Uh-huh.
because you're writing for that, with that
Okay.
intention. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That was something that I was, yeah, when I had came across you on Podmatch, I was like, I wonder if you know exactly what part is going to get used
No, they
or,
don't tell
or not.
us.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So like what's next for you? Is it continuing down the path that you're on, or are there any tricks up your sleeve as far as the type of recordings you're going to focus on? Like, are you going to stay in the film and TV world? Or are you going to branch out into other avenues? Like, what's next?
Yeah. So right now I've kind of shifted gears to, I mean, I'm still working on my own sync licensing career, but I'm shifting gears to helping and coaching other artists to learn how to do this for themselves and make some good money. And I, you know, I help people do that, and then ultimately, you know, in a couple years' time, I actually hope to return to my artistry and put out an album. But we'll see how the timeline works on that,
Uh
because
huh.
that's a lot of work.
Oh yeah. All right. So yeah. So feel free to plug the website, plug everything you have going on, where we can find
Sure.
all of the music.
Yeah, so you can go to my website. It's nismahosman.com, nismahosman.com. And if you do slash about or slash call, I actually offer a free call. And if you want to know how ready your music is for sync licensing, I will hop on the phone with you. We'll talk for 15 minutes and I'll let you know if your music is ready for sync or not and what you need to do to get there. So
Okay.
don't sleep on that if you're curious about sync.
All righty. So leave us with a parting shot for dreamers and aspiring musicians.
Ooh, okay, I'll go with this one. If you want to know what your future looks like, just look at your today.
Okay.
Yeah,
All righty. Nisma, it's been a pleasure.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we had this planned a few months ago, but holiday season came and we both got sick, and we are
Yeah,
finally able to make it happen. So
yeah,
it's a pleasure. And like, I'll tell my wife, because we watch Love Is Blind every Wednesday when the episodes drop. I was
Nice.
like, I interviewed the person that's behind the music, you know?
Yeah, that's
So,
cool.
all righty. So,
Well, thank you so much.
oh, sure. And for Stop, Look, and Listen, I'm your host, LaTroy Gardner. See you next week. Peace and blessings.